I just signed with AEW and I am a huge fan. I'm so honored to be in the same company as you.
Nice to meet you, darling. But I'm not doing autographs right now.
Oh, no. I'm a wrestler. I just came from Stardom just like you, and I loved everything you did there, and I love everything you're doing here, and I love you.
Darling, didn't catch a word of that.
Let's pick up where we left off. This video serves as a sequel to the Timeless Saga, so don't forget to check that out. But please, feel welcome to stay and start the story in medias res. Anyways, let's begin. During Toni Storm's momentous evolution into the Timeless One and winning back the Women's World Championship at Full Gear, a new character entered the fray in the glamour, Mariah May. Following in the footsteps of Toni Storm, Mariah got her rise in stardom before making her way to All Elite Wrestling, and upon her debut, she made it no secret how much she admired and idolized Toni Storm, claiming to be her biggest fan. But despite her constant presence and her many efforts to get Toni's attention, Mariah was often snubbed and overlooked, to a point Toni didn't even acknowledge Mariah's existence. But eventually, Mariah would be given her chance, playing a big role during Revolution 2024 during Timeless Toni's match against Deonna Purrazzo. Acting as a distraction, Mariah played the role of Rockstar Toni, donning the red and black leather gear, using Toni's old entrance music, and ultimately, she intervened in the match that helped Toni retain the championship. It was after this winning performance that Toni started paying attention to Mariah, being so proud of her work, and officially took Mariah in as her protege. Mariah served her new role well, helping Toni against opponents like Deonna Purrazzo, Thunder Rosa, and Serena Deeb. Both mentor and protege work really well together, and Toni's mentorship started to rub off on the glamour, as Mariah started to adopt a lot of Toni's moves in her matches. But despite it being a red flag on how much Mariah was becoming like Toni, first imitating her looks and now imitating her moveset, Toni didn't mind, because she was too enamored at seeing another version of herself in the ring. But this love story between Mariah and Toni will grow to become a bit more complicated with the arrival of
You were coming for me to serve my win? Yes. Thank you so much. You are amazing.
For a bit of context, before AEW, one of Mariah's closest friends is Mina Shirakawa. Both women were also formerly known as the tag team Rose Gold during their days in Stardom. Mariah helping and cheering Mina on as she started to collect wins and the adoration of the AEW audience. But things would start to get complicated when Toni Storm doesn't necessarily approve or even gets jealous of their relationship, and things would only escalate when it is announced that Toni and Mina would face against each other at Forbidden Door for the Women's World title. Mariah was put in a tight spot, seeing both women that she loved go head-to-head against each other, and Mina wasn't making matters any better, threatening to take not only the spotlight, but the title, and the girl, aka Mariah, away from Toni Storm. If signs of Toni and Mariah's eventual breakup wasn't evident enough then, it definitely is now. Mariah has been vouching for Toni to trust Mina for weeks, and now everything that Toni held dear is on the line. But despite all that, Toni still didn't question Mariah's allegiances, putting her focus on retaining the title first. And during Toni and Mina's match, Mariah was at ringside where she had to endure watching both women wrestle a very hard-hitting match. Given their history wrestling in Stardom, both women put on a really strong performance, with Toni eventually coming on top with a win. And despite their previous comments and issues against each other, Mina and Toni would bury the hatchet, both out of respect for each other and out of love for Mariah May. Don't let this wholesome moment fool you. While Toni was occupied with retaining the title, Mariah was also in a busy spot herself, with Toni giving Mariah the chance to achieve her dream and entered her in the 2024 Owen Hart Cup for the chance to win a title match at All In.
And I want you to have all the same opportunities that I've had. But I never had someone
to look out for me, and that's what I'm going to be for you. So, as AEW Women's World Champion, I am demanding that you be entered into the Owen Hart Tournament!
The foreshadowing of Mariah's inevitable turn started to become more and more blatant, with Mariah herself giving us a visual hint when she changed her gear from Toni's rockstar persona into Toni's more devious outcast persona, and Mariah wore this outfit throughout her whole run in the Owen Cup until the finals. Now, why would Toni help set up fighting Mariah at All In? While it seems like self-sabotage, it is simple really for Toni. She did it out of love. Throughout the few months that they have been together, Toni has grown quite fond of Mariah. As I said earlier, Toni said she saw herself in her protege. And Toni wanted to give Mariah the opportunity and support that she was never given when she was a younger wrestler. Toni also thought that there would be no better opponent for her during the biggest event of AEW than her own protege. For once, timeless Toni wanted to share the spotlight with someone else, and it's now a matter of letting the better woman win. However, despite Toni's help and blessing, Mariah still had to earn that spot at All In, going against Saraya in the first round, Hikaru Shida in the second round, and facing last year's winner Willow Nightingale in the finals. But in spite of it all, and despite all the odds being against her, Mariah was able to pull through thanks to a little help from Toni Storm to get the win. And just like that, Toni and Mariah secured the dream match at All In. Celebrating Mariah's victory, Toni put her chin up, her tits out, but sadly, she didn't watch for the shoe.
Honestly, I didn't think it would last this long either. But it was so easy. And I was having so much fun stringing her along. I just wanted to see how far it would go. But then I saw Wembley. And I thought, why take the old horse out back when I can kill it in front of as many people as possible?
With Mariah finally showing her true colors, she became a lot more arrogant and a lot more vicious in her promos and matches, taking pride in bloodying Toni Storm and using the shoe as her trophy. But even with all her confidence, Mariah was about to find out that her former mentor can be just as vicious as her. Retaliating with a vengeance and a promise to destroy what she created, Toni Storm put on some of the best performances she ever had, putting on so much emotion with every second she had on screen. Toni was a woman who was hurt, backstabbed, and now threatened to lose everything to Mariah. And so, Toni has promised to give it her all, even being ready to die for the performance of a lifetime. Poetically, if All In will be where it ends, then there wouldn't be a better place, given the timeless character was basically born in the same pay-per-view last year. This match at All In was nothing short of emotional. While Mariah clearly had the advantage, learning all of Toni's moves over the past year, not only could Mariah execute those moves herself, but has also learned how to survive and reverse them. But Toni wouldn't go down without a fight. Even if she was strategically disadvantaged, her emotion and hatred is what helped carry her against Mariah, even bloodying her former protege on the steel steps. But this emotion would eventually lead to Toni's downfall. She basically had the match won. She could have taken the win a number of times, but was too focused on hurting Mariah. And when Toni was given the opportunity to take revenge and bludgeon her with a shoe, she hesitated. She hesitated because beneath all her hatred, she still had love for her former student. Sure, you can say Toni hesitated because the referee was looking right at her, but regardless, if Toni hit Mariah or not, the disqualification would still lead to Toni walking away as champion. But alas, that hesitation opened the door for Mariah to recover and beat Toni with her own version of the Storm Zero for the win and the AEW Women's World Championship.
I'm no hero. I've spent my entire career just looking out for me, and I'd say it served me pretty well. How dare you say this women's division is alive and well when I've eclipsed everyone here just by being me.
If Mariah's heel turn didn't show just how cruel and manipulative she could be, let me tell you, her title reign definitely showed just how much of a psychopath she truly was. Despite putting on some great matches against Willow Nightingale and Anna Jay, Mariah resented the women's division, seeing that no one could step up on her level, berating and belittling the division and its wrestlers whenever she could. And things finally take a turn when Mariah decided to take down another woman who was once so close to her, in Mina Shirakawa. Betrayal that led to a title match between the former tag partners at Winter is Coming, and a match where Mariah showed no hesitation in putting down her former friend and taking the spotlight of the women's division all to herself. That is until the unexpected return of the rookie, Toni Storm.
Sorry, nice to meet you. Hi. Oh my God, sorry. Thunder Rosa, I'm Toni Storm. I just wanted to introduce myself. It's a pleasure to meet you. Oh my God, and Tony Schiavone, legend. Oh my God, I'm Toni Storm. It is so nice to meet you. Wow. Sorry. Yeah, I'll let you get back to what you're doing. Just wanted to say hi. Okay. Rock on. Yeah.
Bear with me, this is gonna be a bit confusing, but months after her loss at All In, Toni debuts again for AEW as The Rookie. Toni returned acting like she has never been in AEW before and has basically forgotten everything that's happened within the past few years, presenting herself to wrestlers like Deonna Purrazzo, Taya Valkyrie, and Thunder Rosa as if she were a new wrestler to the scene with a sparkle in her eyes and a happy to be there attitude. But is it all an act? Or did she really forget who she was? Did the trauma of losing the title and the betrayal of Mariah May really lead to her amnesia? These were all questions the audience and the wrestlers wondered about Toni's bizarre change in character. But regardless of that answer, Toni becoming the rookie has been an entertaining change of pace, taking her time to reintroduce herself to the fans and proving to everyone why we all fell in love with her in the first place. Toni wrestled from the ground up as a squeaky clean babyface for us to get behind, and acted as a complete opposite to the wicked Mariah May. And Toni's rapid rise back to the top was cemented after winning the Women's Casino Gauntlet match, securing herself a title match against Mariah at Grand Slam Australia. Obviously, Mariah wasn't thrilled to see the woman she manipulated, beaten, and humiliated get another round against her. For all she knew, this could be another act of revenge by Toni Storm to get at her. While Toni had the rest of us fooled, Mariah was having none of it, dismissing Toni once again. But what would cinema be if it didn't have a twist in the story?
What makes you think our dance is done?
Yes!
Each scar, every drop of blood, I will feel forever. But now, it's my moment in the sun. They say the hardest role you will ever play is yourself. But what you've just witnessed is the performance of a lifetime.
It was from Mariah's hubris and ignorance that allowed Toni to rise up the card from under her nose. And I know I've said this a lot in regards to Toni Storm, but this was just beautifully poetic. Just as how Mariah played the role of Toni Storm to win the title, Toni did the same, playing the role of Toni Storm to win the title. Toni revealed in an interview after her loss at All In, she spent the many months away going around the world wrestling and finding herself again, before being ready to even face Mariah. And this time away led her to create the rookie as a means to catch Mariah off guard, but also to remind the audience of how good she really is, and bring herself back to a mindset of a young, spirited, and determined Toni Storm. And upon her reveal, Toni easily got under Mariah's skin, at one point kind of literally even, as Toni came in for a match impersonating her former protege, showing that she has learned just as much about Mariah as Mariah did to her. And when Mariah and Toni first faced off at All In, Mariah had home country advantage at London, but at Grand Slam, the roles reversed, with Toni being the hometown hero, and in this match, Toni showed just how much she learned about Mariah. This second match was more wrestling focused than their first. The emotions were better controlled by both women, and they instead had to focus how to get the upper hand against an opponent who was all too familiar about them. But Toni, being the veteran wrestler, realized she wasn't going to beat Mariah with mind games and her usual finishers, and instead caught her by surprise with a roll-up for the win, and historically becoming the first ever 4-time AEW Women's World Champion. But the war wasn't over yet.
Look what you made me do! Oh, look what you made me do! You never did know how to write an ending, did you? So I guess I'm going to write one for you. And I'm gonna write it in your own blood.
Oh, for God's sakes.
This is our spotlight. This is our moment. Let's be stars together.
Mariah May is unhinged completely.
At Revolution, let's have a Hollywood ending.
Quickly after losing the title, Mariah calls out Toni for one more match. One last chance to settle the score between them in the Hollywood ending match at Revolution 2025. And Toni was happy to oblige and give their story the trilogy it deserves. No disqualifications, no countouts, falls count anywhere. Toni and Mariah were ready to risk it all for this performance of a lifetime. Blood, tables, glass, steel chains, every single weapon you can think of. Mariah and Toni's third match was a straight up brawl. There were no grapples or holds. This was a straight up bloodbath between two women whose intense hatred for each other has reached its crescendo, bashing each other against the barricades, against the mat, against shattered glass, and against the stage, with both of them giving this historic feud its rightful ending. And through it all, Toni Storm finally gets her justice, finishing the story the way it started, as she held no hesitation, finally drilling the shoe into Mariah's head, and finished off her former protege with a Storm Zero through the table for the pin and the win. Bloodied, exhausted, and beaten, Toni finally vanquishes Mariah May, concluding their cinematic masterpiece. I know this sequel focused a lot more on Mariah May, and I see how badly timed this video was with her now jumping over to NXT. But undoubtedly, she still deserves her flowers for this feud. Toni needed someone to tango with, and Mariah played that role perfectly, from a starry-eyed newcomer to a conniving and wicked champion. Her performance throughout this whole feud was nothing short of phenomenal, and the benefit goes both ways. Mariah has definitely improved her stock as a wrestler, and Toni arguably has become AEW's biggest star. Both of these women redefined women's wrestling throughout this feud, from the acting, the storytelling, and setting the standard for wrestling matches. And I also want to give credit for the other side characters in this story, Luther and RJ City. Luther, playing the butler, added so much to Toni Storm, Even if he is mostly in the background, having Luther around really elevated the presentation of Toni's performance, especially when she was going through her antics. RJ City as well. He helped introduce us to the Timeless character, and was also there to help set up Mariah in the story. And to add some more trivia to this feud, Tony Khan, the owner of AEW, has stated that the Timeless story has taken a lot of inspiration on classical movies, with one of them being Sunset Boulevard, a story of a forgotten actress that still clings on and believes she is the star she once was, her delusions spilling out and driving her insane. This movie's main character also had a butler who enabled her on these delusions. In the other movie they drew inspiration on, All About Eve, is more evident in the Mariah arc of this story. Mariah even vaguely refers to it in her All About Mariah promo, the story of a young actress who manipulates her way through praise and attempts to overcome the mentor who took her in. Even if this chapter of the story comes to a close, Toni now faces a new challenge. A few months after Mariah's defeat, Toni continued to pull up the women's division by being its standard bearer and challenging its wrestlers, giving them chances in eliminator matches. But despite her great run so far, her new and arguably biggest challenge finally approaches in Mercedes Moné. After winning the 2025 Women's Owen Hart Tournament, Mercedes and Toni are now scheduled to face off at All In. Mercedes being a multi-time world champion in many promotions around the world and current TBS champion going up against the 4-time AEW Women's World Champion in Toni Storm. This match is very grand and very special in many ways because these two wrestlers spent a lot of their careers trailblazing and helping form what women's wrestling is today. Toni can finally correct history. She lost at the first All-In against Saraya, she lost last year against Mariah, and third time could finally be the charm. Toni has another chance to try and walk out of All-In as the world champion. But regardless of how this match unfolds, one thing is for sure. It is going to be timeless. Thank you all so much for watching. I want to give a special shout out to some videos that helped me along the way. Drop Mic Wrestling and AEW's timeline videos. These two both really help a lot when it comes to clips and highlights of the story, and I highly encourage you all to watch them too. So I will link all of that in the description below. Anyways, I'll see you all very soon again, for there are still more tapes to rewind.